Well, another week and another Rooster Teeth update as more and more stuff happens behind the scenes of the company and things appear to be degrading rather than improving. So very briefly, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this video, I do want to give a brief disclaimer. This is probably going to be a little bit longer than the last few updates that we've done, specifically because, number one, a couple of the posts that we're going to try to summarize and talk about are pretty lengthy, and secondly, because there has been so many major updates over just the last 24 hours that we're going to be taking a little bit longer with this video. We do also want to take a moment to say that we super appreciate both the comments that are against us and the comments that are for us. We are trying to see both sides of the equation. We're trying to understand both sides of it. We've also been receiving some very supporting messages from some members of the community that are going to remain nameless, but suffice to say, your support is greatly appreciated, and know that your messages moved us very deeply. Thirdly, I also just want to take a brief moment to, the usual kit and caboodle. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's helping us out quite a bit. But before we get into our first bit, I want to mention that there's going to be a lot of conflicting information in a couple of these posts. And there's going to be one in particular that is kind of being presented as much more of like a rumor as opposed to a outright fact. And you'll understand what I mean here in a minute. So I apologize for the long intro. Without further ado, let's get into our first topic. So Geoff Ramsey, the man, the myth, the legend, has actually had some allegations come out against him over the last couple of days. Now, if you're somebody who has been perusing the Rooster Teeth subreddit, you've probably been noticing that there's only really been one or two things that have come out about Geoff, and they have gained more or less zero traction. And this is also the part where I have to say I apologize ahead of time if it seems like I'm being way more lenient on things about Geoff than I am about Ryan. You have to understand, Ryan has confirmed a lot of the things that people are saying about him, and a lot of the things that are being said about him, even if they're not illegal, do come off as borderline predatory and creepy. Now, I also do understand that everything that happened between Ryan and the other people was consensual to the best of our knowledge. That doesn't change the fact that once you read into the Reddit posts, when you look at the pictures, you look at the screenshots, it's really hard to feel bad for the guy, and it's really hard to not say what it is. He was preying on people's insecurities, and he was being a predator. There is no two ways about it. But when it comes to Geoff, the allegations against him, you'll see here in a little bit, is something that you're gonna have to be a little bit more of an open mind about it. Not only because Geoff just has a very different personal life from what little bit we understand about it than Ryan did, also because Geoff is just such a different personality than Ryan, and he's really kind of like the father figure to everybody in Achievement Hunter. So there definitely is I shall say, there is like a sense of leniency around Geoff, if only because people are just not willing to like even consider the fact that Geoff could be somebody who could be outed here very soon. We, for one, are praying that is not the case, because if Geoff goes, I don't even know how I'm going to react to that. I can't say the same for anybody else, but Geoff, even though I attribute my humor profile to just about everybody in Achievement Hunter, Geoff, for me, is the reason that I've continued watching Rooster Teeth content. Even if I haven't kept up with Achievement Hunter, Geoff was the person who got me into everything. Like, I'm working on a video right now too that's kind of like a retrospective of where I believe Rooster Teeth went wrong over the last couple of years. And really, like, my defining moment for Rooster Teeth going wrong is when Geoff started taking a much less inclusive role in the rest of the company. Because to me, Geoff is like the soul of the company. So I'm sorry, I've been prattling on a little bit too long. So here is the beginning of Geoff's post. As I said, it's pretty lengthy. There's going to be parts that I'm going to try to summarize, or there's going to be paragraphs I'm just going to outright skip if they don't seem necessarily important. But I am going to be reading most of it, so just please be patient with me. So starting out, the title, hey y'all, it's Geoff. Well, now there's allegations about me, so I guess I need to issue a statement. First off, hello, it's been a while since we've talked. I've been pretty quiet and absent from social media and content for a good bit now, since early June to be exact. There's reasons, and I will get into them through the course of this letter, since I guess I can't seem to avoid it. Let me be clear, I am not happy about sharing all of this. I've shared most of my life with you, successes, failures, embarrassing moments, painful ones, lots and lots of stuff. You know when I shit my pants, you know when about my issues with impotence, but I'd like to have some level of privacy in my life. Some line where I am allowed to keep parts to myself. It's an issue I've had with this relationship with y'all, the audience, for a long time. I have trouble finding the line, but for my sanity, I need to. There's an allegation out there that I sexted with a member of the community in the past. This is partially true, but I need to clear some things up. Until these last few weeks, I had no idea about the Ryan stuff. None of us did. We found out when you did. The accusation this person made about me knowing is just not true. I've kept silent on the subject of him and Adam, not out of some sort of guilt or complacency, but out of horror and pain. It also hits very close to home for me and the reasons I've been absent these last few months. I don't have a very well documented list of events, hence my timelines are by memory, so forgive me if they were a little foggy. Griffin and I were headed toward divorce years ago. Without getting far into it, it's really no one's business but ours. We recognized it and did everything in our power to stop it. We tried multiple therapists and many other things. One of our last attempts to right the ship was polyamory. For the last year or so we were together, we opened the relationship up. We didn't do this lightly. We read multiple books about it, talked to people about it from the community, and even proactively got and started seeing a polytherapist to help us navigate, and when that wasn't a good fit, we got a different polytherapist. We tried to be as ethical and fair and kind to each other as possible in the process. That meant total communication, even when painful. This is another thing that I need to refute from that report. When Griffin and I were together, we never kept things secret from her, nor she from me, and I always communicated with all the people that I saw, as did she. In that process, we dated new people, and we both learned a lot about social media. I'd been married for about 22 years at that point, across 2 marriages, obviously, and had never dated with social media before. Tinder, Snapchat, Instagram, Bumble, those were all ways people now met and expressed interest to each other and in ways I had never experienced before. Ultimately, I found it to be an unbalanced and unrewarding way to meet and date. I never set out to date people from the community, but I did meet a few. People would approach me constantly from inside and outside the community. I met and dated a few women during this time. I definitely talked with women who were familiar with Rooster Teeth, and I did have a lot of insomnia in those days, and I definitely remember talking to a kind woman from Australia who approached me and flirted with me as she did with me. I saw this as nothing more than 2 consenting adults who were getting to know each other. In the process, but not because of it, Griffin and I decided to separate and eventually divorce. I met and dated people in that time as well. I was newly single and extremely lonely and heartbroken and was pretty receptive to kind attention. Ultimately, in the process, I decided that dating people from the community wasn't for me. I felt at a huge disadvantage spending time with someone who already knew so much about me and I so little about them. It left me feeling pretty exposed and uncomfortable, so I started hiding the Rooster Teeth part of my life and only dating women from sites like Tinder and Bumble, where we met on equal footing. Eventually, I met my current girlfriend who knew nothing about Rooster Teeth or the community. And that's it. I never groomed anyone, I never approached anyone or manipulated them. I never did any of the unacceptable shit others have done. At every step, I tried to be ethical and communicative and honest with people. When someone approached me out of interest, I was interested in them. I got to know them. I thought I was being a single, consenting adult, getting to know others. I was just trying to navigate dating with a bunch of scary and exciting new social media platforms, and ultimately I hated them and stopped. None of this is why I've been silent, but I recognize that my silence will be interpreted as such, so here we go. I had a complete and total nervous breakdown in June. My battle with alcohol addiction, still not drinking by the way, still haven't fucked that up, divorce, rebuilding my life from the ground up, taking the new role in the company, the what felt like weekly new controversies of Rooster Teeth, the political climate, the BLM stuff, all left me in a really raw and diminished state. Then in June, and I'm not going to talk about it in detail probably ever, I just fucking can't, there was a family tragedy that was more than I could bear. I took an immediate leave of absence from Rooster Teeth. Lewis and Jordan were very kind and supportive of this, and everyone at Rooster Teeth has been incredibly patient with me. I cannot thank them enough. With a lot of help from therapy and close friends and family, I'm trying to put myself back together. It's slow and often feels impossible, but I'm working at it every day. I'm not sure how to end this other than to say I've never tried to be anything but ethical and honest with people, and I've never tried to take advantage of them or my status. If I missed that mark, I can only apologize and continue to try and grow myself to be better than I was. If you do view me as a villain, take it out on me, not my daughter, girlfriend, ex-wife, or co-workers. And regardless of how you feel about me, I love y'all. So, what should you take away from Geoff's very long, very detailed statement? This is what I was saying when it's going to sound like I am not being objective with this, and it sounds like I'm going to be a lot more lenient on Geoff than I have been on Ryan. As I said, I do feel that there are definitely some very confirmed and real reasons to be harder on Ryan than on Geoff, especially just in the sense of we have known a lot of Geoff's personal life. We do know all the struggles that he has had. And like I was even mentioning in other videos, how it's felt like Geoff has just kind of completely disappeared. That was something else that I mentioned in the Rooster Teeth video that I'm working on outside of this video, was that it feels like Geoff is just completely absent, and I guess now we understand why. It's really not our business to know what the personal tragedy is that he's dealing with. I mean, I briefly remember when Geoff lost his dad back in the early days of Achievement Hunter, and I remember he seemed like he took a really big dive during that time. So I'm not here to try and guess what the family tragedy was. That is, again, not my business, not anyone's business. And if Geoff says that it hurts so much that he's never going to go into detail about it, then we don't need to sit here and try to speculate as to what the hell happened to Geoff. Whatever the case may be, when you look at the evidence that was presented by the person who implicated Geoff, a lot of it doesn't really stand up. A lot of her timelines doesn't make sense, but there is the one issue that we can only take Geoff at his word so far. Until somebody like Griffin or somebody else who had really intimate knowledge of what was going on, which from what Geoff is saying was really only him and Griffin, until Griffin really comes forward and confirms Geoff's, long tirade and confirms the timelines and says Geoff was never implicated in this, you guys need to leave him alone, then it's kind of a he said, she said situation. As I said, I'm trying not to just outright say Geoff is innocent, you guys need to leave him the fuck alone, because the fact of the matter is I'm very biased when it comes to Geoff Ramsey. I don't think I will be able to emotionally take Geoff Ramsey if he gets outed to be as bad as Ryan. I don't think I would ever be able to take that. So like in my heart and in my head, I just want to say, well, of course Geoff is innocent. I mean, especially after reading this, I'm like, this reads like Geoff. This reads like something that Geoff would be saying to me on off topic. But until something else gets corroborated, just take everything he said with a grain of salt, but simultaneously take everything that his implicator said with a grain of salt. You just have to take it at face value, and I know that sucks. I know nobody ever wants to take things like this at face value, but this is one of those rare circumstances where you're just going to have to until something else happens. So moving on to our second topic, this is the one that I was talking about that is a complete rumor, and there's an element of it that's been confirmed to be true, but the fallout of it that people are quote-unquote anticipating is something that you have to take with a massive grain of salt, okay? So Jeremy Dooley, who is probably currently one of the biggest fan favorites at Rooster Teeth, or Achievement Hunter, I should say, he's been around for, I think, just a little over 6 or 7 years with the Achievement Hunter crew at this point. And he recently announced on one of his Twitch streams that since Rooster Teeth will be remote, at least until, the end of the year, he and Kat will actually be going back to New England so they can be closer to their family. So a lot of people, and I shouldn't say a lot of people, some people are speculating that this might be Jeremy's soft way of trying to get people used to the fact that maybe he's going to try and take a lesser role in content creation, if not outright just say he's kind of done with the controversy and he wants to go kind of reconnect with people. I will say I am not on that side of people who are speculating that. I personally think that Jeremy's going to be one of the few people who pulls himself through all the shit that's happening right now. But until we really hear like a new update after, like the next couple of months go by, we won't really know for sure. This was the thing that I was talking about where I said it's a complete rumor. Yes, Jeremy is going back to New England, but it does not appear that he's planning on changing any of his status with Achievement Hunter, including his content creation. So if I were you, I would just take this as an interpretation of Jeremy just needs to get some space, but he also wants to keep working on the content in the community that he loves just as much as we do. And before we get into the most recent Ryan Haywood update, there is a brief thing that I wanted to mention real quick concerning Trevor Collins. So Trevor Collins is the current manager of the Achievement Hunter and Let's Play channel, and he's the guy who just kind of oversees all the content creation and curation. So back in I believe it was late 2018, there was a very brief accusation by a member of the community who was dating Trevor at the time that Trevor was emotionally and physically abusive and that he was cheating on her, and that was why he ended up moving on, quote unquote, to Barbara Dunkelman, who is his current partner. And they essentially just went on this tirade that I actually mentioned in another video. I struggled to find any of the stuff about her claims, which to me was immediately suspicious. I will also say I don't follow Trevor Collins very closely, so I never even really knew that much about it. As a matter of fact, the only reason that I even knew about the initial claims was that one of you guys actually went into one of the comments and asked us directly, hey, do you guys plan on covering the Trevor Collins controversy? And I was like, I wasn't even aware that Trevor was ever embroiled in controversy, especially because I don't really know that much about Trevor Collins. Apparently, so Trevor decided that now was probably the time to go out and say, you know what, enough is enough. The accusations aren't true. And yes, Geoff's was very long. However, Trevor's particular entry is 10 pages long, so I am not going to be reading all of it. But I do want to read you a couple of his intro paragraphs, and I will put a link to this whole document in the description down below. So if you want to go and look at all of the evidence and the pictures that he supplied, it's looking like the accusations are false, guys. So if you were one of those people that was firmly on the side of Emily when she made those accusations against him, you might want to think very seriously about that and go and read this document and see the evidence that he presents for you. Obviously, it's not going to convince everybody, and people are still going to be naysayers, but for the most part, it's a pretty damning it's a pretty damning document, guys. So Trevor says, I have been at a deep loss for words for 2.5 years now, and this time I've watched some heinous accusations roll out about me. I've watched the story unfold while I silently took the heat, but due to recent events, I can no longer allow that. There's been a betrayal of trust between us here in Achievement Hunter and you all in the community. In light of that trust and stepping into the future expunged of the offenders who betrayed it, here is my statement. I never cheated on anyone, and more importantly, I never laid a hand on anyone. To be clear, the accusations of cheating and abuse, physical or otherwise, are entirely false. Before I even begin, I believe victims. If you're a survivor of abuse in any form, this statement is not meant to discourage you or others from stating your truth and coming forth with strength. I and everyone I know will hear you and stand with you. This statement is for my situation alone. For those who believe these claims against me, I understand and don't fault you for that. I will address this in as much detail as I can. This will be long, but I'll do my best to keep it organized. Some of you will ask why I haven't said anything thus far. Simply put, I have, but privately. From the moment accusations were made against me, I made all the information for me and against me available to Rooster Teeth. My managers, HR and PR and marketing team, our legal department, and our community team. I've also been in ongoing communication with several external lawyers on the matter. Again, I brought all information from the accuser to the company myself and made all of my information available as well throughout these years. I had nothing to hide and wanted to be completely transparent. And then skipping to the end of it because, like I said, long document. So his ending paragraph summarizes it pretty well. I hope this statement provides some understanding to those who have yearned for a response. If I'm honest, this was very difficult and painful to write and reflects upon emotions from a time that I have been needing to move on from. On top of this, there have been a handful of individuals who seem to relish in this narrative, and it's been disappointed to see them spin their own facts on top of the already changing story. It has stolen our voices in times where we wanted to stand up for others. At times, it prevented us from speaking when there were friends needing support. It created a fear that we would be called into question, that our words would ring hollow with hypocrisy. This will be my first and last word on this subject. I'm hoping this ends the cycle of anxiety and undue stress Barbara and I have silently faced for these past 2.5 years, and hope we can find some peace hereafter. I truly love you all in this community. I wish to continue building on the trust we've all worked so hard to develop with you these many years. Thank you for listening, Trevor. So again, like I said, if you are one of those people who either found yourself on one side of these arguments, or if you even really knew about the initial allegations or the accusations, I highly recommend you go click the link to this document in the description. I'm not saying you need to read the whole thing, but definitely go through and skim it because it will probably make things pretty clear for you. So the only update that we have for Ryan Haywood is that another woman has come forward with a story about his infidelity and the things that he did behind, the Achievement Hunter crew's back and the things he did behind his wife's back. But I think this update is particularly important because there's been a lot of comments about people who are accusing us of just spinning the narrative and saying these people were all consenting, like nothing wrong ever happened, Ryan never did anything bad, etc., etc. So before I get into the details of this, which you'll see why I'm preambling this a little bit, first off, we never claimed that anything was non-consensual. We understood that from the very beginning. What we did say was that from some of the screenshots, some of the images, and some of the conversations that took place, it looks like some of the activities that took place like mid-act, like when they were actively engaging in sexual activities, it looks like some of the things were not discussed beforehand, and Ryan took advantage of the situation to basically enact some of his fantasies out that weren't discussed prior to the activity itself. Now again, we're not trying to say that Ryan went out and raped people. That's not what we're trying to say. There are definitely victims in this, and there are absolutely people who were taken advantage of by Ryan But this particular update, I think, shows a very good side of things to where there were people who were just completely consenting to the entire thing, and all that they are right now is they're just regretting their part in it, and they're just trying to clean themselves of the guilt. Now, I know to a lot of people, all they're going to hear is just clean themselves of the guilt, and they're just going to say, well, that's not fair, then why can't Ryan do that? Well, for the reasons we just mentioned, because Ryan absolutely did some worse stuff than people are really giving him credit for. I cannot say that profusely enough. I'm not advocating for people to go out and be mean to Ryan. I am not advocating for people to go harass him or his family or send him threats or start like taking a shit all over his personal life. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is that with the evidence we've been presented and with the people that have come forward, there's a lot of reasons to dislike Ryan Haywood and to say he absolutely took things way too far in some circumstances. So with that out of the way, let's briefly go over the latest update from another member of the community. So I don't really know how to start this. I was never even really going to say anything at all. I still don't want my name on this for my own personal reasons, nor will I ever comfortably associate myself with this. I, like a few others, did not see myself as a victim. I willingly participated in this. I didn't initially initiate it. I just kind of fell into it. I accidentally sent a message to him that was meant for someone else while I had been drinking for my birthday. I apologized profusely to him, saying I didn't mean to send it to him. He gently nudged at it to hear what the previous conversation was about, and I was so shocked that the Ryan Haywood wanted to know about my interests and things I was showing a slight desire to try, so I happily chatted with him about it. We talked for 3 days straight about our sexual interests, things we'd done, and things we wanted to try. Some of which I can no longer find any interest in, and found after this experience I probably don't ever want to genuinely delve into. After the first initial interaction, we talked for weeks. He eventually came back, apologizing that work was hectic and he was so busy. I just said you don't need to apologize for having a life, that I don't believe this is meant to be special because of what was occurring, and made me feel so good about being understanding of the circumstances. He sold me the same sob story he did to everyone else about how he loved his wife and he never regretted getting married, and that he only had no physical intimacy and that he felt insecure and lonely because of this. So again, like, it's just showing how he essentially tried the same tactic on every single person that he met, right? It was a consistent story between him and the people that he talked to. So skipping on down to her closing statements. These are not all the screenshots I took, but the ones that seem the most associated with what I have tried to say. I still do not claim myself to be a victim, as I was a consenting adult of 23 at the time. But I felt that people needed to know that the numbers are there, that this is not just a few girls or women that this was done to. And for anyone questioning the Snapchat names, since they're easily edited, I don't know if I've missed anything or forgotten anything, but this is all I can think of as I type this up. So as I said, I think that this is a story that people should definitely go and compare and contrast to some of the others, because you can see how there absolutely were women involved in this, where Ryan didn't do anything really all that weird, nothing really all that creepy. It seemed completely consensual the whole way through, and it didn't really seem like anything strange was happening outside of, him being unfaithful to his wife, and the fact that he was doing this with community members who were actively, like engaging in it and encouraging it and, trying to get him to do more. But it's important to see things like this where there are people who are just trying to bring details to light, and they're just trying to say, hey, you know what? If you don't believe it, here's some more confirmation. Even if it's something where the bookend statement is, I don't believe myself to be a victim, and I do not believe myself to be innocent. It's important to realize that those people are there. As I said, this latest update isn't really so much to indict Ryan as it is just to show that there are people who are not actively trying to gain like internet fame off of it. They're not trying to be like, here's my name, here's my Twitter handle, here's my story about Ryan, blah, 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 woe is me, here's what happened, etc., right? There are people out there who are going to do that. That was why the whole initial thing was kind of ignored for the most part, because most of the reports were coming from 4chan, where everyone just kind of went, yeah, it's 4chan. It sounds like you guys are probably just trying to start an easy internet clout thing, or this is another troll who really cares. It's important to see how there are two sides to every conversation. There are the people who are completely consensual and 100% of everything that happened and only really have a regret because they now see how far Ryan has slunk, and they now kind of feel some sort of a responsibility to clarify some things and say, hey, here's my side of what happened. If you want to corroborate this against somebody else, then here you go. And I think it's just important to realize that it exists. It's important just to know that these people are out there. So that is going to be our major update for the day, guys. Like I said, I know that this video is significantly longer than the last couple of ones that we've done. if there wasn't so much to talk about and if it didn't really involve Geoff and Trevor, it definitely would not be as long as it is. Such as it is, here we are, and now you are up to speed on everything that is happening in the community, and we are hoping that, like we've said in a few other videos, desperately hoping that this is the worst part of it. Like I said, I don't know if I can take things getting much worse, because already to see Rooster Teeth hitting such a new low, as somebody who's just been a big fan of them for so long, it's really starting to bum me out, you know? So like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, if you found anything interesting, or if you feel like we need to start a conversation about it, be sure to leave us a comment down below and let us know. We're interested to see both sides of the conversation. If you disagree with us, if you agree with us, leave us a comment and we'll try our best to get to you about it. Be sure to like the video as well, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to check out the playlist in the description down below and in the suggestion bar if you are not caught up on the Ryan Haywood controversy. But until next time, guys, we will talk to you later.